South Africa's rap scene is heavily inundated with that hyper commercial, trap-esque sound to the point where one would think this is all that exists. I mean, as far as the pop scope of what is left of radio and what is prioritized in alternative media, most of what we see is the quote-unquote trap sound. I don't blame a lot of young up and coming youth who are either trying to gravitate to rap or are doing it in and of themselves, of resting on the sound that is just so typical nowadays. You know the sound that began with Lil Wayne and was sophisticated around Drake and was amplified with Kanye and rejuvenated by Future and moved on to the story that we tell today in the form of artists like Little Baby, and thus here we are. It's pretty much the continuation of an electronic dance format of rap that has crept further and further away from classical lyric-centered rap music, which when you contrast the 90s golden era with what you hear now in terms of rap, the fundamental difference is rap back then really was primarily about how beats can complement lyrics. Today, it's definitely the other way around. There are very, very few rappers in the mainstream spotlight who have a sound that caters to anchoring verses first. A lot of the music really is about diving, sinking, and in fact probably disappearing into instrumentals. And this is why even in the performance outlet you'll find that a lot of rappers nowadays perform over backing tracks. This is, if anything at all, a symptom of the dismissal of lyrics, the voice, and the importance of vocality and projection being the fundamental instrument of an MC. Why am I rambling on about these kind of themes? Because other rappers of a lyrical kind exist. And when I say lyrical kind, I'm not talking about rappers who compromise musical dexterity and the harmony and the wonder of creating a sound that is able to rest on lyrics softly enough to not create a head trip. I'm talking about rapper musicians who are able to understand how to work instrumentals that complement their voices. South Africa has many an MC that is really at the precipice of what is a sound that's already been embraced by many parts of Europe, a sound that now feeds off of an ancestor of rap, an ancestor of hip-hop, jazz. And one of the foremost voices of the South African jazz rap sound is none other than Emamkay, an MC from the Gauteng region who basically migrates from Pretoria to Soweto, but is this beautiful melding of neo-soul that oozes sincerity, integrity, heart, soft tone textures, and the kind of sound you'd associate with Poetry Cafe. Emamkay's sound is a living testament of, one, demystifying this fallacy that the most successful, lucrative kind of rap is this hyper-commercial, bordering on trap sound. And two, it's a redemptive piercing of salvaging the value of musically inclined lyricism. And I say musically inclined lyricism because I feel we already have enough of a spoken word art that pays no real regard to the instrumental, as it should, because there are dynamics around the voice where as a rapper you could choose to completely creep into the polyrhythmic pockets of a beat to a point where many would say you are classically offbeat. There's a brand of rap for that is so hyper lyrical that the beat really is an overture. There is a kind of rap that is the opposite end of the spectrum, where the voice is an overture. But artists like Emamkay sit in the middle. And I think the middle is where, for the lack of a better word, the best kind of rap sits, where cognizance of beat, rhythm, tone, and the dynamics of an instrumental sit, meld, and embed themselves in the beat, where it just becomes one smooth thing. And this is typically the tradition that he's expressed to a point of relative success. This is a rapper who is traveling many parts of the world, who is building a social profile for himself, who is marking a unique niche as an African, as a South African, as a rapper, as a musician, because he plays keys. So as a keyboardist, he's able to become part muso in the tradition of an evolving jazz sound, but also poet in the tradition of an evolving rap tradition. And it is this beautiful synthesis of the two that makes him such an endearing artist in our time. So going into his latest project, Love is Energy, it is this mystical manifesto of this interconnected web of giving and receiving. It's appreciating what one has and understanding how to give back. It's treading back and forth between compromise and how much of ourselves should we give to the world in order to receive from it. And I think these themes are succinctly driven through, because Emamkay pretty much has a very simple way of rapping. It's conversational, it doesn't go anywhere exciting. He's not the kind of lyricist you will listen for and find gems of cadence or syncopated structures that excite you if you are a rap nerd. He's definitely for those who appreciate their jazz with lyrics on top of it. So he's definitely one who can take rap music outside of typical places like grimy corners and ciphers or sparkly disco balls around nightclubs. He takes it to a place that is a little bit more mature, grown, reserved, inclined, restrained, and therefore his sound has more room to give the capacity for aging, more room to give the capacity to reflect about things that are more sincere to growing in life. And I think a lot of the opposite spectrums of rap, the hyper-lyrical rap and the hyper-musical rap, tend to forsake an element in order to elevate another, where one forsakes the lyrics and the other forsakes the beats. Here we have Emamkay trying to keep both in a medley and a beautiful relationship that sinks deep. Does he do this? Of course he does. He's done it for his whole run. But I think why we would tend to not really gravitate to this kind of sound, it's not exciting. It is comforting. And I think pop culture thrives on titillating people with bits of ecstasy. It tries to make you jump off your seat and feel you need to claw yourself into places of escape. This music is more relieved. This music will ease you so much you might sleep into a dream state. And that's not even a bad thing. It's not sleepy because it's boring. It's sleepy because it's entrancing. It's like literally being hypnotized by music until it seeps into a place where you're not even sure if you're awake anymore. And I think this spiritual quality is something to brag about. From the title track, which kind of flows us into this open breathing room and takes us into like a caressing, and the warps and the woofs of the subtle drums, and of course his keyboarding prowess, which gives us melodies that like sit as a bedrock of gentleness. That as he asks this question of what does one do in order to keep themselves sane and balanced, the keys answer this by saying stability. They provide stability. His melodies provide stability. So as a result, he's gone on record to describe his genre as personal. This is coming from a man who understands that what he does is pretty much very, very self-indulgent. He doesn't make music to primarily cater to an imaginary audience. He thinks of himself, speaks of himself, and wishfully along the way, anybody who gravitates to the journey can ride along. And of course, this sound is something akin to many of us who appreciate, again, this drifting dreamscape of music. And it is because of that that we need to understand the value and importance of this kind of rapper. And thank goodness for the existence of Emamkay to continually have the resilience and of course the interest and love to still keep it going. And I think by saying to us love is the energy, he's saying he doesn't need to feed from trend, to feed from the mass marketed hype in order to continue doing what he does. I mean, of course, it's in consideration of that. Capitalism is embedded in the context of how to produce and put your artistry out as a product. So this is definitely not an artist who's brooding in naivete. This is somebody who understands that there's a market for everything, and he's found it, and he's pretty much comfortable in it. And comfort can have its qualities. Too much comfort can be despondent, but just enough comfort to allow you to continuously challenge yourself is what I feel here. Nothing that will burst into a futuristic direction yet, because as I said, he kind of honors a sound that has well established itself into the ears of what is considered an alternative audience. And because of that, there's not a lot of rush to push for the unexpected and the untried and the untested. There's still so much that hasn't been fiddled around with within the configuration of this lo-fi neo-jazz sound. And if you look at his catalog, he's went from the electro terrain coming back into more of a sound that settles into a kind of techno-centricness, and now he's in a place that's warmer and he's home, or trying to give credence to home. I mean, it's present in songs like Tembisa, which ooze of this kind of ashes rising from the dust into space. And his sound is that. It's a beautiful combination of intergalactic transcendence met with a very, very grounding earthiness. So ultimately, for me, taking into consideration the beautiful curation, the way that it's able to be in a world that is limited but vast, and yes, I know that might sound a little oxymoronic, but it's very real. He takes the capacity of his world and stretches it bare. How much do I give this? For me, it's a solid 6.5 out of 10. Just sheerly on the fact that I think as the music grows, it will gesture itself into the question of how is it going to be pushed forward. So I do think that Love is Energy in a couple of years will find itself blending in more than it stands out. And again, that is not a bad thing. It is a testament of a time, so it doesn't matter to speak for the individual artist. And it is for that reason that it doesn't creep into the 7, 8, 9 mark. But the musical quality overall is definitely something that needs to be taken in, regarded, appreciated, and in fact revered. My name is VJ, the brother from the ancient mother, and if I can say anything as a last note, is rappers. There are many lanes to find the individual niche of rapping that you, in the depths of your soul, want to let out. You do not have to force yourself into the monotony, and rappers like these show us that it is in fact a living reality. Please subscribe to the Headspace if you haven't. This is the kind of thing we do all the time. We are Africa's most poignant pop culture podcast. Come on now.